There was a time during my early to mid 20s, and maybe a little while after that, when I was all about cyberpunk. Maybe it was all the cyberpunk blogs I followed on Tumblr, but whatever it was, I was all over cyberpunk. Cyberpunk books like Neuromancer and others by William Gibson, cyberpunk movies like Blade Runner and Akira, cyberpunk TV shows like Max Headroom, cyberpunk video games like Beneath a Steel Sky, the Tex Murphy games, Final Fantasy VII, Read Only Memories, Valhalla, and many others, and even the then emergent cyberpunk-inspired synthwave music scene. No matter if it was good, or bad, or ugly, if it was cyberpunk, I ate it. I just ate it all up. Not only was I all over cyberpunk, but I balked and turned my nose up at any other kind of punk sci-fi, but especially steampunk. I would think things like, oh, steampunk? Pshaw! Look at it. It's all brown and rusty and covered with gears and goggles. They don't even serve any practical purpose other than aesthetics. Trust me, old bean, cyberpunk is the way of the future. Literally. Then something happened. Well, actually, a number of things happened. In any case, to put it generously, we are now living in the very future against which Douglas Adams spent his whole working life fighting a crusade. And you know, it's boring. There's no shimmering neon lights. There's no jetpacks. There's no flying cars. There's no robots that do our laundry. There is nothing, but nothing, to indicate that this future looks any different than the past did 10 years ago. Except now we have smart refrigerators. Whoopee! Not only that, but to paraphrase George Carlin, the big, wealthy business interests now control things and make all the decisions and have more influence on our daily lives than politicians. Forget about the politicians. Politicians are put there to make you think you have freedom of choice. You don't. You don't have a choice. There is only one way to live, and you will never, ever get out of it, even if you wanted to. And you can forget about revolutions. Let me tell you something about revolutions. Revolutions? Sure, they always start with the best of intentions. The common man says to other common men, something has to change. And they fight. They fight and fight and fight. Eventually, if they're lucky, they win. Then what? Then the leaders of the revolution put themselves into power. They become the bosses. They prop themselves up on a throne made of the blood and sweat and tears of their enemies and their allies alike. The so-called revolutionaries are now the very thing against they revolted in the first place. And then what happens? The same friggin' thing starts all over again. It's just tiresome. I'm tired. I'm fed up to the back teeth with this dark, boring future. And when I feel that bad, I like to turn towards my favorite literary genre, science fiction. Because sci-fi, at its best, shows us the best that humanity can be. It's one of the reasons why I'm so hardcore into Star Trek at the moment, but that's another story. Now, what I'm talking about now is steampunk. Yes, perhaps I owe steampunk an apology. Before I threw it by the wayside in my 20s, there was a time in my teens when I was into both cyberpunk and steampunk. Until I wasn't. But now I see this cesspool that we call a world in which we live, and the inhabitants who wallow around within it. And, well, I'm pretty pessimistic, to say the least. So whenever I'm feeling that way, I like to turn to other, more optimistic science fiction. Hence, steampunk. Pretty much every steampunk book, movie, or TV show I have seen has been fun. Just pure, unadulterated, raw Not all of it, not all of it, not all of it, but most of it. Jules Verne, especially, has always been a fun author to read. H.G. Wells is fun too, but Wells, in my opinion, is fun in the same way that a roller coaster is fun. The Time Machine, The Island of Dr. Moreau, The Invisible Man, The War of the Worlds. Wells is the kind of fun where you know that what you're getting into is potentially dangerous and maybe even life-threatening, but at the end of the day, you're definitely going to come out in one piece. Maybe a little rattled, but for sure in one piece. Wells is an adrenaline rush. Whereas Verne, on the other hand, is fun in the same way that a leisurely walk in the park with your dog is fun. Journey to the Center of the Earth is playing make-believe in the backyard with your childhood friends. From the Earth to the Moon is pretending to be an astronaut with a cardboard box and a bicycle helmet. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is looking at a goldfish bowl and seeing not a goldfish, but a deadly shark or a submarine. Around the World in 80 Days is flying a kite in an open field with your friends or family. Even things that freely adapt the works of Jules Verne, like the Czech movie Invention for Destruction, or works that take inspiration from Jules Verne, like the anime series Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, or the Disney film Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Just loads of fun. Jules Verne is fun. Steampunk is fun. Cyberpunk is not fun. Not in the least. Cyberpunk's whole rhetoric is high-tech, low-life. Steampunk is also about technological advancement, yes, but it's always with an air of optimism about it. Technology is used for the betterment of mankind, not the control of it. Steampunk is, wow, look at this shiny new thing. I wonder how I can use it to help people. Cyberpunk is, wow, look at this shiny new thing. I wonder how I can use it to keep people in line. Ours is a society obsessed with keeping up with the latest toys and candy. And yet the top 1% of Americans own 32% of the nation's wealth. The rest of us, id, est, we, the proletariats and plebeians, only own 2%. We have been conditioned by the system into thinking that this is the only way to live. But you know what? It is! This is the only way to live. There's no way out of it. It's not going to get better. We will keep being obsessed with the latest toys and candy. We will continue to own less and less of the nation's wealth. And the kicker? The real gut punch? Scientists estimate that 80 years from now, the world population will have nearly exceeded 80 billion. Elon Musk has almost 190 billion more dollars as of now than the number of humans in 2100. This is our world. It is not a world where we find dinosaurs at the Earth's core. It is not a world where we travel to the moon in a homemade bullet rocket. It is not a world where we fight giant squids at the bottom of the ocean. It is not a world where we can fly through the far reaches of the world in a hot air balloon. It is not a world where time travel is possible. It is not a world where mad scientists can create human-animal hybrids. It is not a world where a man can turn invisible. It is not a world that Martians even want to invade. It is not a world with a bright, shiny, soft, and cuddly aesthetic. It is not a world with low-poly PS2 graphics. It is not a world of optimism. This world is dark, and we may die. Cyberpunk is dead. Long live Steampunk.